On January 7th, 2018, Michael Turpin's life changed forever. He was a millionaire, a tech entrepreneur, and one of the leading figures in the cryptocurrency world. But that evening, as he stepped out of a conference in Las Vegas, he had no idea that thousands of miles away, a 15-year-old boy was plotting to steal everything he had. Within hours, $24 million would vanish into thin air, and Turpin's world would come crashing down.
It's a cybercrime called SIM swapping, and it's costing people across the country tens of millions of dollars.
This wasn't the work of seasoned criminals or sophisticated hackers. It was a kid, a teenager who, with nothing more than a computer and a stolen phone number, pulled off one of the largest heists in cryptocurrency history. Ellis Pinsky didn't look like the kind of kid who could pull off a multi-million-dollar heist. He grew up in Manhattan, in a modest apartment where space was tight and money was tighter. His mother, a single parent to 3 boys, worked long hours just to make ends meet. Ellis was smart, curious, and restless, but in a home where every penny mattered, there wasn't much room for anything beyond the basics. That's why, when his mother surprised the family with a move to the suburbs, it felt like everything was about to change. Irvington, New York was nothing like the noisy, crowded streets of Manhattan. For Ellis, it was a fresh start. A quiet neighborhood, a bigger house, and for the first time, his very own room. But what stood out most to him wasn't the new space. It was the brand new Xbox his mother had saved up to buy. For most kids, it was just a gaming console. For Ellis, it became his world. Late into the night, Ellis would sit in front of the TV, immersed in online matches of Call of Duty. He was competitive, quick to learn, and even quicker to trash talk anyone who dared challenge him. But one night, something happened that changed everything. In the middle of a heated match, another player said something that stopped him cold. "How's the weather in Irvington?" Ellis froze. Somehow, this stranger on the internet knew where he lived. He wasn't scared. He was fascinated. How could someone find out something like that? How did they do it? And could he do it too? Ellis didn't just shrug it off. He started asking questions, probing other players for answers. That's when he learned about a tool called Wireshark. It was simple, at least to him, a program that could track IP addresses and reveal someone's approximate location. Ellis tried it out, and it worked. Within minutes, he could pinpoint other players just like they had done to him. It wasn't just a tool, it was power, and Ellis was hooked. At first, it was all just a game. He'd use the tool to spook strangers or mess with his friends. But the more he learned, the more he realized how much the internet could hide, and how much it could reveal. Soon, Ellis wasn't just curious, he was obsessed. What started as a way to get even with strangers online quickly turned into something bigger. Ellis began scouring forums, reading everything he could about hacking and network vulnerabilities. He wasn't just playing anymore, he was studying. Every late-night session, every new trick he learned brought him closer to a world most people don't even know exists. By the time Ellis was 14, he wasn't just a gamer anymore. He was a hacker in the making. And as he dug deeper into this hidden world, he found something that would take him to the next level. A place where hackers shared secrets, sold stolen accounts, and turned their skills into cold, hard cash. It was a forum called OG Users, and for Ellis, it was about to become a second home. By the time Ellis Pinsky discovered OG Users, he was already walking a fine line between curiosity and crime. The forum wasn't just a gathering place for hackers. It was a marketplace, a school, and a playground for those who wanted to profit from the internet's darkest corners. For Ellis, it wasn't just exciting, it was intoxicating. OG Users looked innocent enough at first glance. A clean interface, categories for buying and selling accounts, and a thriving community of users who traded rare social media handles like baseball cards. But behind the polished surface, there was something much darker. These weren't just accounts. They were stolen identities, and the methods used to obtain them? Illegal, unethical, and to Ellis, fascinating. At 14, Ellis created his first account on the forum under the username Pi. He didn't just want to be a bystander. He wanted to learn everything. The forum was filled with guides and discussions on hacking techniques, SQL injections, cross-site scripting, phishing scams. It was a crash course in cybercrime, and Ellis soaked it all in. But while others were content with small-time scams, Ellis wanted more. One method stood out to him above the rest: SIM swapping. It was deceptively simple, but devastatingly effective. The idea was this: if you could convince a telecom employee to transfer someone's phone number to your SIM card, you could gain control of everything linked to that number: emails, social media accounts, even bank accounts. It wasn't hacking in the traditional sense. It was social engineering. And for Ellis, it was perfect. But Ellis didn't want to rely on deception alone. He knew there were people inside the system, underpaid telecom employees, who could be bribed. A few $100s was all it took to get someone on the inside to do his bidding. And once he had them, he had power. With a single phone number, he could take over accounts, reset passwords, and sell stolen usernames for thousands of dollars. At first, it was just about the money. Ellis began selling rare Instagram handles, flipping them for profit. But the more he succeeded, the more he craved. He wasn't just in it for the cash anymore. He wanted control, status, and the respect of the community. And on OG users, respect wasn't earned through talk. It was earned through action. Ellis began targeting bigger accounts, more complex systems. Each success brought him closer to the top of the food chain. But as he climbed higher, he started attracting attention, not just from the forum, but from people who saw his potential. One of them was Harry, an older hacker with a bold idea. Why waste time on social media accounts, Harry argued, when there were millions to be made in cryptocurrency? Harry had a target in mind: Michael Turpin, a millionaire, a crypto pioneer, and someone with just enough vulnerabilities to exploit. For Ellis, this wasn't just another opportunity. This was the opportunity. The plan was simple on paper, but required precision to execute. Over the course of weeks, Ellis and Harry laid the groundwork for what would become one of the largest SIM swapping crimes in history. They thought they had everything under control, but as Ellis was about to learn, the higher you climb, the farther you fall. By early 2018, Ellis Pinsky and Harry were ready to put their plan into action. For weeks, they had studied their target: Michael Turpin, a millionaire cryptocurrency investor and a prominent figure in the tech world. To most people, Turpin was untouchable, protected by layers of security. But to Ellis and Harry, he was vulnerable, and they knew exactly where to strike. The plan revolved around one simple flaw: the human element. No matter how secure someone's accounts might be, there is always a weak link. In this case, that link was AT&T, Turpin's phone provider. All it took was one employee willing to take a bribe, and Ellis and Harry had their way in. They didn't need to break into Turpin's accounts directly. They just needed his phone number. The evening of January 7th, 2018 was carefully chosen. Turpin was attending a cryptocurrency conference in Las Vegas, a busy schedule that would keep him distracted. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Ellis and Harry sat in front of their screens, preparing for the moment that could change their lives forever. At exactly 7 p.m., Ellis sent a message to one of his contacts at AT&T, a low-level employee willing to transfer Turpin's number to a burner SIM card for just a few $100s. Within minutes, it was done. With Turpin's phone number under their control, Ellis and Harry got to work. First, they accessed his email by resetting the password using two-factor authentication tied to the stolen number. From there, they launched a script, a program designed to comb through every message in Turpin's inbox, searching for keywords like wallet, password, and crypto. At first, nothing came up. The clock was ticking. Turpin had been SIM swapped before, and it wouldn't take long for him to notice something was wrong. Harry was ready to call it quits. But Ellis refused to give up. He knew there had to be something that could make this entire operation worthwhile. And then, just as Harry was about to log off, the script returned a result. It was an email containing the 12-word seed phrase to one of Turpin's crypto wallets. This wasn't just a lucky break. It was the jackpot. The wallet contained over $24 million worth of cryptocurrency, and now it was theirs. But Ellis wasn't satisfied. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew the biggest challenge wasn't stealing the money. It was keeping it. Ellis and Harry spent the next few hours transferring the stolen funds into smaller accounts, spreading them out to avoid detection. But even as the money moved, cracks were already starting to form. The thrill of the heist had blinded them to the risks, and they had no idea how much danger they were really in. The heist had made Ellis a millionaire overnight, but it had also put a target on his back. The fallout would come faster than he could have imagined. And as betrayal, paranoia, and greed took hold, the empire Ellis thought he was building would begin to collapse. For Ellis Pinsky and Harry, the heist was a triumph. In a single night, they had stolen $24 million, an amount so staggering it didn't even feel real. But as the adrenaline faded, reality set in. This wasn't just another hacking job. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and in the days that followed, the cracks in their plan began to show. Ellis had never handled this much money before. To move stolen funds without raising suspicion, he relied on a network of contacts, other hackers and crypto traders who could help him exchange the cryptocurrency for Bitcoin. One of these contacts was Nick Truglia, a brash young man from Manhattan who had a reputation for being reckless. For Ellis, trusting Nick was a gamble, but at the time, he thought he didn't have a choice. Nick agreed to help sell a portion of the stolen cryptocurrency, but instead of returning the funds as promised, he disappeared with $1.5 million in his pocket. Harry was furious. He wanted revenge, even suggesting they hire someone to deal with Nick. But Ellis, always the calmer of the two, talked him down. It wasn't worth the risk, he argued. They still had millions left. Why make things worse? But Nick's betrayal wasn't just about the money. It was a crack in their partnership, a sign that trust was in short supply. And it wasn't just Nick. The entire operation was built on shaky alliances, bribed telecom employees, shady traders, and hackers who had no loyalty to anyone but themselves. For Ellis, the realization was unsettling. If Nick could turn on them, who else might? As paranoia set in, Ellis started to question everything. He stopped sharing details with Harry, began moving funds into hidden accounts, and even kept his family in the dark. To the outside world, he was just a normal teenager, a soccer player, a gamer, a high school kid with nothing to hide. But behind the scenes, he was scrambling to keep control of a situation that was quickly spiraling out of it. Meanwhile, Nick wasn't staying quiet. Flush with cash, he flaunted his wealth on social media, posting photos of expensive watches, luxury cars, and nights out at exclusive clubs. It was reckless, arrogant, and exactly the kind of behavior that got people caught. For Ellis, it was a ticking time bomb. The more attention Nick drew to himself, the closer the authorities were to uncovering the truth. Ellis had thought the hardest part of the heist was pulling it off, but now he realized the real challenge was surviving the aftermath. The greed, the jealousy, the betrayals, they were all coming to a head. And as Michael Turpin began to piece together what had happened, Ellis's carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. For Michael Turpin, the first sign that something was wrong came when his phone stopped working. At first, he thought it was a minor issue, maybe a network outage or a technical glitch. But within hours, the truth became painfully clear. His accounts had been compromised and millions of dollars were gone. This wasn't a mistake, it was an attack. Turpin was no stranger to the dangers of the crypto world. Just a year earlier, he had been the victim of a smaller SIM swapping attack. But this time, the scale was staggering. Over $24 million had vanished, spread across countless wallets and exchanges, leaving little trace behind. Turpin was devastated, but he wasn't about to give up. He had the resources, the connections, and most importantly, the determination to fight back. The first thing Turpin did was contact his lawyers. Together, they launched an investigation, combing through blockchain transactions and digital breadcrumbs to trace the stolen funds. At the same time, Turpin made his story public, giving interviews and raising awareness about the growing threat of SIM swapping attacks. His goal was clear: put pressure on the hackers and make it impossible for them to hide. The media attention worked. News outlets picked up the story, and law enforcement agencies began to take notice. Turpin's case became a rallying cry for victims of cybercrime, shining a spotlight on the vulnerabilities of the tech and telecom industries. But while Turpin was fighting to recover his stolen fortune, Ellis Pinsky was trying to stay invisible. For weeks, Ellis kept a low profile. He stayed off the forums, avoided unnecessary transactions, and tried to convince himself that he had gotten away with it. But deep down, he knew it was only a matter of time before someone connected the dots. And as Turpin's investigation gained momentum, Ellis's name began to surface. The first major break in the case came from an unlikely source: Nick Truglia. Nick's reckless behavior had drawn the attention of law enforcement, and when investigators combed through his digital footprint, they found connections to the Turpin heist. Chat logs, blockchain records, even photos of Nick flaunting his newfound wealth. It was all there. And while Nick wasn't the mastermind, his carelessness brought the entire operation into the spotlight. Ellis's world began to crumble. Turpin's lawyers tracked down his online alias, Pi, and linked it to his real identity. They contacted his mother, sending an email that laid out everything they knew. For Ellis, the game was over. He confessed to his family, returned what remained of the stolen funds, and hoped that his cooperation would keep him out of jail. But Turpin wasn't satisfied. For him, this wasn't just about money, it was about justice. As lawsuits piled up and law enforcement closed in, Ellis realized he wasn't in control anymore. The heist that had made him a millionaire was now tearing his life apart. And as the legal battles escalated, the consequences of his actions would become impossible to ignore. By the time Ellis Pinsky turned 18, the full weight of his actions had caught up with him. What had started as a teenage curiosity had spiraled into one of the largest SIM-swapping crimes in history, and now the consequences were inescapable. Unlike his accomplice, Nick Truglia, Ellis managed to avoid prison. His age at the time of the crime worked in his favor, as did his cooperation with law enforcement. He returned a large portion of the stolen funds, although their value had plummeted by the time he gave them back. And this act of restitution helped keep him out of jail. But avoiding prison didn't mean escaping punishment. Michael Turpin filed a $22 million lawsuit against Ellis, seeking damages not just for the stolen funds, but for the financial and emotional toll the heist had taken. The court ruled in Turpin's favor, leaving Ellis with a staggering judgment he would likely never be able to repay. For the now college-bound teenager, this financial burden became his lifelong sentence. His accomplice, Nick Truglia, wasn't so fortunate. Nick's reckless behavior and refusal to cooperate with authorities led to his arrest on 21 felony charges, including wire fraud and identity theft. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay restitution. But even after serving his time, Nick's legal troubles continued. By 2024, he was back in court, accused of hiding assets and failing to repay his debts. Prosecutors claimed he still had access to millions in stolen cryptocurrency, and the judge, frustrated with Nick's dishonesty, threatened to keep him in jail indefinitely for contempt of court. And for Ellis, the consequences weren't just financial. His family faced threats and harassment, and one night, armed intruders broke into their home, believing Ellis still had millions hidden away. The family barricaded themselves upstairs until police arrived, but the incident was a grim reminder that Ellis's past wasn't something he could escape easily. Now a student at New York University, Ellis has tried to move forward. He dreams of starting a legitimate tech company, using his skills for good instead of harm. But the shadow of his past looms large. The $22 million judgment, the media scrutiny, and the lingering threat of legal repercussions are burdens he'll carry for the rest of his life. For Michael Turpin, the fight for justice continues. While he has recovered portions of the stolen funds, the missing millions remain unaccounted for, and the battle to hold the responsible parties accountable is far from over. Turpin has become a vocal advocate against SIM-swapping crimes, using his experience to push for stronger security measures and greater accountability from corporations like AT&T. For Ellis, the heist that made him a millionaire also cost him everything: his freedom, his future, and the life he thought he could have. And like this, we've reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed it and want to see more like it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.